Good morning and welcome to the Mahwah Regional Chamber of Commerce Professional Development Webinar Series. Today's presentation is sponsored by R&D Legal Bookkeeping. And our topic is on how to get results with direct mail. Speaking with us today is going to be Sabrina McEntee from Hype Marketing. So, Sabrina, the line is yours.
Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate all of you for joining me today and listening to my presentation. I'm really looking forward to presenting this material to you. If it's okay with everyone, what I'd like to do is take all the questions at the end so I can get through these 15 or so slides. Okay, let's get started here. What is direct mail? Direct mail is a highly effective form of marketing. It's a powerful component to any comprehensive marketing campaign. When we think of direct mail, we think of offline print media, something that's tangible, perhaps a brochure, a sales letter, or even the increasingly popular jumbo postcards. It's influential, and the reason for that is that it really does build your brand, and it supports other campaign elements, and I will give you an example of that. You can use a direct mail piece to not only send a great offer about your business, but it also serves as a great vehicle to drive traffic to your website. And hopefully, if the piece is effective and done well, you'll be able to capture additional information from your prospects, like their email address, for instance, and then you can communicate with them personally. That really is the power of direct mail. We start with an offline printed piece, and the prospect ends up learning more about your business by going online and visiting your website. In terms of getting the word out with direct mail, I've included various examples of direct mail here. Fundraising appeal letters, postcards, and really determining which piece makes the most sense for your business does depend on your goal, your offer, and of course your audience. For example, a postcard mailer tends to be one of my favorite methods of direct mail, and the reason for that, quite simply, is that there are no barriers to reading the message. There's no envelope that needs to be opened, and hopefully, if done correctly, your piece will be sent to your ideal client, and so the message will be well received and begin the lead generation process. That means either a phone call to your business or a visit to your website where the prospect will learn more about your company. And let's think about lumpy mail for a moment. The name really says it all. It's a lumpy envelope that arrives at your prospect's door with some sort of clever gift or promotional item for your company. Open rates are typically much higher for these pieces because most people are naturally curious about what's in the envelope. Certainly your postal rates would be significantly higher because it is a dimensional piece, but part of your strategy might be to send out less pieces and come up with a great follow-up system. You'll notice some compelling statistics about the power of direct mail. As we can see with the first stat, consumers cite convenience as a reason for their preference for direct mail. It can be put aside and referred to at a better time. In comparison to email marketing, which is, by the way, very cost-effective in terms of a marketing medium, emails can and often are deleted and forgotten. Direct mail is tangible, and so there are no technical barriers. You don't need to be tech-savvy or click on any links, so it's really no surprise that such a high percentage of marketers plan on adding direct mail as a component to their future marketing plans. Let's talk about results for a moment here. Again, in this slide, we're comparing direct mail to online marketing, and I'd like to use this opportunity to tell you that the ideal marketing plan would combine both marketing forms. I'm not saying one is better than the other. Integrated marketing is key, and although my presentation today is about direct mail, it is important to note that firing on several channels and testing your results is really the right route. For example, right now we're working on a direct mail campaign for a client. We're targeting mid-market firms making revenues of $2 million and higher. Our call to action includes the prospect visiting a landing page where we would then capture their email information. We would then take those leads and email those prospects moving forward. So again, I'm not necessarily saying one is better than the other. You just need to have an approach where you think out the entire system in the funnel of where you're capturing your prospect's attention and how you're moving them through the sales funnel. Finally, direct mail can and must be measured. I've cited an example of a potential response rate to a campaign in my next slide, so let's look at that for a moment. Now, before we go through these numbers, I don't want anyone to get scared with this particular campaign cost. I know for small businesses, $20,000 a year may be their entire marketing budget. In some cases, for a small business owner, it may not even be that amount. So I'm going to talk about this example and then give you another example of a recent campaign I did that was much smaller. In this case, the list size is $10,000. So you're looking at this piece all in being about $2 a piece. With this particular response rate, 300 people responded to the mailer. And out of those, 45 engaged with the business. So by dividing our total campaign cost by the people that actually engaged, that was your total cost per acquisition. Now again, is that high or low? Well, that really depends on what you're selling and if that customer is staying with you for the long run. We just ran a direct mail campaign for a private school and only mailed to about 600 homes because the target was so particular. We targeted individuals that made an income of $200,000 and higher with a child in the home, and that mailing cost was about $1,800, and that included postage, which typically eats up quite a bit of the budget. So there's another example of, this list size was 10,000. A campaign that we recently ran was only 600. And in this case, because the client is a school owner and it's a private school, as long as she converts one or two of those mailers into a student that enrolls, they would have made their money back. That would have been successful based on their rates. So let's look at the infographic to the right here. We again touch on the point of small businesses embracing both print and digital communication to achieve their sales goals. And that's really what multiple channel marketing is all about. As discussed earlier in the direct mail example that leads clients from printed piece to an online landing page where we capture their email addresses, we can also draw attention to your company's social media sites. That's another opportunity for prospects to learn more about what you're posting and follow you on your social media channels. And looking at ROI again for a moment, studies do show that delivering marketing messages via multiple channels will increase your return on investment. And by doing so, you can test which distribution channels are working and which are not. Last but not least, the goal here is to always grow your database. That's really where the gold is. Once a customer's raised their hand in response to your ad, the next question becomes, well, how are we going to engage with that customer? Keeping their data is critical for future promotions and communications. And even if they're not ready to buy from you today, keeping in touch with them and offering valuable information is going to go a long way in building that relationship. Having them remember your company and your brand when they're ready to call, that's really key. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the background of direct mail, and I think I've provided some good stats for you. But now let's assume we really have kind of done our homework. We've decided that this is a good element and a good piece of our marketing campaign. Now we're actually going to get started, and I've outlined the different steps to a direct mail piece. Setting objectives is first, and naturally you would ask, what is our goal? Are we selling a solution to a problem? What is your customer's pain point? And how can your company fulfill a need that they have? In terms of increasing brand awareness, again, that's with every piece. And brand identity is another conversation, but I have to stop for a moment and mention that you really have to make sure that your website, all of your marketing communications are well branded and that they're recognizable. I know some companies, have different pieces that were done at different times, and their brand is really not that strong. You want a customer to get your piece, and whether it's your logo or your font, recognize right away that it's coming from your company. Okay, define the target market. If I had to pick any one slide in this entire presentation that's the most important, it would absolutely be this one. Identifying your customer and really knowing their profile is critical to a successful direct mail campaign, or any marketing campaign for that matter. You want to get your piece in the right hands at the right time with the right message, and that's really the essence of great marketing. And I've given some examples here of questions you really need to ask yourself so that you really define the target market properly. In terms of reaching your target audience, there are 3 different types of lists. Response lists are people who've already responded to your offer. So these are prospects who have called as a result of your campaign. And then the next strategic question you would ask would be, okay, what do we do with these names now? How do we engage these customers? Rented lists are very commonly used. We use them quite often in marketing. Most marketers do. These are lists that we buy for either single or multiple use that narrowly define your customer. The private school client that I mentioned earlier, that's a great example of really focusing in on a geographical area, in income, children in the home. And I have to tell you, nowadays, as long as you're swiping a credit card, your data is being kept, stored, and sold to big data houses. So most data houses have information about you. If I went to a grocery store and bought dog food for the last 3 months, I would be tagged as a pet owner. So if you own a pet store, there are lists that you can buy that can target people who have pets or have bought pet food, so that you know that you're targeting the right customer. And in terms of an organic list, these are lists that you've cultivated, whether you've collected them at a networking group, or maybe you own a local retail store and you collect email addresses to send future promotions or coupons. These are lists you've internally vetted. If you have these names and addresses in an Excel file, they can be used for a direct mail piece, or even loaded into a platform like a Constant Contact or a MailChimp for email marketing. So those are important to keep those names and really keep in contact with your customers. The message is really the most important and influential element of any piece that you're going to put out. I cannot underestimate the importance of great writing. Of course, including critical information like your web address, contact phone numbers, social media platforms that you're on. These always need to be included. In terms of your call to action, the question that you want to ask yourself is, what are you offering? It's very important that you consider your headline. 90% headline rule I wrote here, and I'll explain what that means. The headline is critical and should not be underestimated. When we create the copy and content for a campaign, we spend over 90% of our time on the headline. It's really that important. The headline's excellent. It really pulls the reader in, wanting to read more. We want to drive engagement, offer prizes, incentives, popular gifts, or discounts, but we really want to make sure that we have a clear offer, and of course there needs to be a deadline on that. What do you want the reader to do, and when should they do it by? In terms of branding and graphics, while professional graphics are extremely important, it is important to not get too caught up in the creative vision that we have nothing compelling to say. And again, to tie in with that last slide, we always start with content and allow the design to develop naturally. The perfect piece is really a piece that marries a great, compelling offer, a great headline, with amazing graphics. I mean, when you think about ads that you see in the paper or anywhere else for that matter, those are the ones that really draw us in. In terms of the marketing mix, I'm sure we've all heard of this expression before. What that really means is properly defining our market, great timing, and an offer that they're hungry for. And that always requires a little bit of research before we actually even spend $1 and launch our offer. Again, a balance of online and offline marketing is quite important, and that would require all the components that we discussed, direct mail, your website, your social media marketing, your email, and even PR efforts. It's really important to look across your brand. And again, we mentioned before metrics. Testing any marketing initiative is extremely important. I wrote here different formats or A/B testing. What that means is it's always good to test different offers, different headlines, even change the graphics to craft the perfect message and see what's working and what doesn't. If you send out 2 offers at the same time, let's call one A and one B, you might really be offering the same thing but maybe saying it differently or providing a different graphic, and that's a great way to see what's working for your company and what's not. Okay, let me go over to the next slide. Direct mail is good business. Just wanted to wrap up a few important points. It draws attention to the organization website and, again, your social media, builds your brand name and recognition, and it does support all of your efforts. I thought this might be a good opportunity to talk about the Mahwah Regional Chamber of Commerce Hitch-A-Ride. Again, that's a direct mail piece. It is a member-only benefit, and what they're offering essentially is a mailing to 1,000 local businesses. It's affordable marketing. We get to provide 1,100 copies of a flyer or postcard for $250. It's actually something that I think is a great deal, and I will certainly consider it for Hype Marketing's campaign this year. I would like to thank everyone for listening, but I do have a few questions that I'd like to look at here. Lumpy mail. Okay, is there a difference in response rates from those? Yes, there actually is. The response rate for lumpy mail is actually almost a 75% open rate, which would increase your conversion. And I think we mentioned, Dave, the reason for that is simply because people are curious. So, I recently read a funny little blurb on a website that said add a lump and get a bump in response rates, and that's quite true. I also have another question here. Let me see. Would you do a test A/B version with a small list, say 100 prospects, or is it too small? That's a really good question. I think that tends to be a small list, and I think what I would almost rather do is run 100 lists to one group and then maybe take that same group and run a second list. Yeah, in my opinion, that is a bit of a small amount to really, and again, depending on your budget, are you really going to spend more money on creative and purchase two separate lists for such a small group? That's my thought process. And I also have another question I'd like to respond to, one that was called in. Okay, this is a really great question. I'm glad I didn't address this. The question is, how often do you recommend sending direct mail? If your budget allows, I would say you'd want to touch the customer 6 to 8 times per year. I think about some of these local gyms, like I think there's one called Retro that opened up near my home, and I'm pretty sure I get a card from them once a month. So again, their budget allows it, but I think they're doing a great job of marketing, and the more often the better. And again, if your piece is working and it's bringing in business, it's not broke, don't fix it. Continue to send that piece out. Okay, and I think I've got one last question here. Okay, I bought a few lists that were advertised as 99% updated, yet 50% were bad. Is this typical? No, that's actually not typical, and that's not a great list. It seems like maybe that list was bought from a company that doesn't scrub their data, and I'm glad this question came up. The list, for instance, hopefully that any good marketer would use would be a list that has a response or success rate of about 94%. I purchased from a company called Axiom. They are a publicly traded multi-billion-dollar company, and I've never had an issue with their list. And again, it's a trade-only list, but I have to tell you that starting out with a good list is quite important. I think I've answered all the questions. Who would I recommend as a list broker? Okay, I think I may have answered that. You really want to work with a great marketing company, and you always want to ask that company where they're getting their data from, because that's critical. You want to start out with good data. I don't think I've missed any questions. I would love to thank you all for joining me today, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me via my website, and I'd be happy to answer any other specific questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sabrina. I want to thank the audience for tuning in and let you know that the professional webinar series is a presentation option available to all MAWA Regional Chamber of Commerce members. So if you are interested in presenting a webinar in the future, please call the Chamber office at 201-529-5566. Thanks for joining us.